Okay, and now we're going to move on to the navigation exercise. Like so many of these later exercises, this is more of a demo that you're just participating in. So I hope you're staying on track, and I hope you're doing these on time, because as far as the grade for these little exercises go, they're extremely easy. They should be. Um, but there's a lot more than getting the grade for this exercise. There's an important reason to do it and to understand this stuff more than just do it, to understand it, because you're going to be putting your own navigation in your own resume pages, and you're going to use this exercise, probably a lot of this exercise, parts from it you're going to take and steal and remake and so on for yourself. So we're learning about navigation. I mentioned before there's two ways to construct text-based HTML and CSS navigation. There's the old way, we float them and we deal with the individual items, and there's some trial and error, and then we make it work. And then there's Flexbox, which is the new one. And I guess we'll start with the Flexbox, which I think, but there's nothing wrong with the older floating idea, but we'll start with the Flexbox. And you have the instructions, again, project folders, root folders, download from Moodle, change the name, and so on. And let's continue. Yes, you could keep this sheet handy, this instructions, and look at them as I go, or just follow along with me and pause as I go. And then there'll be a little more instruction towards the end when we get past these specific examples. And here I am in Notepad++, and this is what the file looks like when you open it up. You could change any of the HTML that you want for your own name and so on. And of course you could change the title, I suppose. But this is my kind of welcome page. You leave them that way if you wish. You'll see I have an area here for in-class exercise, and the flexing one and the floating one. And then I've got two more that follow it that are already filled in. What does this look like right now? It looks like 1, 2, 3, 4 chunks of unstyled navigation. And they are navigation because they are a list of links. And that's what navigation is, right? It's a list of links. Even if that list of links becomes horizontal, becomes styled fancy ways with colors and all kinds of things, right? It's still just a list of links. Okay. And because that's the meaning of way, that's why the reason we start this way is because that's kind of what it is. It's a list of links. And it is obviously an unordered list because there's not like number 1, 2, and 3. They don't have to be done in a certain order or something. Okay, so let's go ahead up to the floating area. See what happens here. Sorry, the flexing area. Okay, so this first thing, these hashtags, navflex, 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 you see how they attach to this area here. Everything in here is just nav. Oh, sorry, that's the wrong one. Attached to this area here. Everything in here has an ID of navflex. All right, and everything inside this one has an ID of just plain old nav. Okay, so that's what those are going on here. But really what this just means is the UL that those lists are in. That's kind of like the overall container, right? We're going to tell that we're going to remove the bullets and make this list as neutral as possible, as it says the instructions. So I'm really just typing that stuff from right in there. Margin of 0. No more margins. Get rid of the margin, so we're starting like from scratch. Padding of 0. And list style type none. So removed the bullets and any padding and margin. So let's go ahead and save that. Okay, that's sitting there a little more naturally there. Now we're going to do some Flexbox commands. This is still to the UL, all right? The UL itself is going to be our container, but we don't have to make a separate container. It is a container, which we can tell to display flex. And we'll tell it to justify content center. Because I decided I wanted centered navigation, but you don't have to do center. You've learned more about Flexbox now, you could do some other method. Okay, so what happened now is all these links have now, just by saying display flex, they all zoomed up beside each other, right? And now the whole thing is centered. Good. So we can dress up these links a little bit now. And the links themselves, of course, are the A's. So now we're doing some stuff to the A. Okay, we're going to tell the A's to display block. I think this is the first time we've used this display block command. And it says act like little block elements. So we can do some stuff to you like we would do to block elements. We could tell them to have a border, 1px solid. And we could tell it to have a border radius. We can make little fancy rounded edge boxes. .5 EM. This is all kind of optional kind of stuff as far as like borders and radiuses and so on, but you can see them. Padding, 0.5 EVM and 1 EM. So of course that is top, bottom, left, right. A little space inside of them there. And we're going to do margin. Just push each one away from the other one a little bit. Of 0.5 EM. We could use pixels there instead. It wouldn't really matter. You can work out pixels you want to. And text decoration. This is the underline. None. So we just did a little bit of styling here, right? Okay. So we gave a little rounded boxes. We made the text. We put some space inside the box, some space outside the box. Now, honestly, we don't have to do the boxes. You're going to see we're going to do some text styling in just a minute with changes of color and so on. But you could, if you want to, just do, you know, the size of the font and give this font some effect like color or so on, and then not worry about the you don't have to do things like boxes and bars and so on. There's nothing wrong with just plain text styled a certain way that makes sense for you, maybe centered or put off to the side. So you take pieces of this kind of styling that you wish. But we do need to have some kind of link behavior. So what happens when we hover over them, it changes, for instance, and it's obvious to us that it is a link, right? So we're going to go ahead and to the nav A, I want to add some color. And we'll do hashtag 000. Sure, why not? And that will be black, of course. Background color. Hashtag FAF0E6. I see some people get screwed up with that zeros. Sometimes they think they just type an F, so type an O instead. No, it's 0. Remember, there is no O. We can go up to F, but not to O. So let's take a look at this. So white background, black text, and they are links. My cursor changes. I guess because they're made like buttons like this, I would know to potentially click on them, but nothing's going to happen anyway because they're dummy links. But we need to have something to happen when I hover over them, right? Okay. So here we get into the issue of having a hover and a focus, for that matter, but we don't have the rest of the link rules, LV, FHA, all those things, because navigation breaks those rules. Navigation, we don't want it visited. We don't want it to behave like other links necessarily. We want it to always be active and available, right? We don't want it to change after we use it. So we don't do those same styles. We're going to do a hover, and we'll do the same thing for the hover, for the focus also. Okay. We'll say color, FFF, hashtag. Do a bit of a switch here, or sort of switch to the color from black to white, right? and background color, we'll change that. Hashtag, try this one, AD8F6D. Okay, and I'm going to put the same thing in here. There it is. Copy this here and put it in there. And we'll leave this one for a moment. Okay, so now when I hover over them, my white text becomes black and my background becomes a different background. Okay, so that would be one way. Of course, I could switch other colors, use other colors I have. It has to fit into your color scheme, whatever you do. Now, many people would leave this navigation like this, and there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, I think these days we typically do see navigation sits there on every page. It looks identical, and there's no indication from the navigation which page we're on. But you do see some websites where the page you are on, that navigation looks, that link looks a little different. It sort of gives you an indication that I am here. So if we're imagining this is the home page, we want it to be the home page. But if we were on some other page, we would make the other page be the one that looks different to say. And then if you just glance at it and say, oh yeah, I'm already there. If I click there, I'm just going to still be here. If I click on home, I'm still going to be on home because I'm in here already. It's what I call, well, it was called in the text, I believe, also the "you are here" effect. And it is optional. Okay, so how do we do it? Well, did you notice that I put a down in the HTML, I have an ID here, and right now it's in the home one. Okay, but of course, if I was doing this piece of this, you get the navigation to work on one page, you copy it all and you paste it onto your other pages, right? But then if you're using a "you are here" effect, you move the ID to the page which it belongs on. So with something called here, and here it is. Not there it is. There it is. Navflex, the one we're working on, hashtag here A. So go to the thing called here and find the A. Just that one A, not the others now, right? And we're going to tell it to have a background color of oh yeah, we're at that background color to stay there. So we're going to use that same background color over again. So it looks like that one has already been pushed, been clicked or whatever, right? And if you wanted to, you could also switch the color, the foreground color to be the white color so it didn't change on hover, or you could leave it like this, whatever. So now that looks like that. It looks different than the others. Okay, so that's how we do the web, the Flexbox version. And you'll notice that there wasn't too much to make the general structure. Then we spent more time just styling it like we wanted to. And you would, of course, would customize that for yourself. Now let's go ahead to the next one. And here it is. It's the floating one. With the floating one, we're going to start with the nav li. And here it is down here. So this time we're doing some work on those individual LIs. We're going to tell them to list style type. None. So we're going to take the underlining off, right? And now let's go to the UL, the overall container, and we're going to tell it padding. Whoops. 0. Essentially, again, kind of removing 0 and auto this time, though. Top, bottom, left, right, auto. You can imagine that's where we're going to get some centering, and width 350 px. This will be a little bit of a trial and error here on the width. So what do? We removed the underline. We did a little bit of removing any padding or margin that might be there. Put the auto on the left, right. That'll help with centering, right? We sized it to, okay. And while we're doing this stuff, we might as well just go ahead and tell those LIs to float. all of them to float left. Okay, let's take a look and see what we did. Okay, all right. Oh yeah, well, okay, some of it worked. We've got it's sized, right? And it's, well, we've removed the we removed the bullets, not the underline, the bullets. Okay, we added padding, margin for the whole thing, and we've done the float to the left. That's why they've all come up beside each other. But I didn't get the centering as I expected to, did I? Let's go back and take a look and see. Did I mistype something? Yes, I did. Look at that. In width, I forgot my colon. Let's save and run it. Okay, that still didn't quite work like I expected. Hold on. Oops, I'm just not paying attention this morning. Margin. I had two G's in there now. That's better. Okay, so it sort of centered it. It doesn't look exactly centered, does it? Here's the issue. We're centering the whole container. It actually is centered, but we only see the text inside of it. Okay? So if we want this thing truly centered, we're going to need to, as we continue, we're going to need to actually make sure the container is just the right size. But let's go do some styling first, and to try to push these things apart a little bit and so on. Okay, so let's go ahead and make those A's display as block, and we can set some dimensions and other styles. So now we're going to do something to the nav A. Here we are, nav A. Let's display block. And again, let's do some margin, 5px, padding, and text decoration none. Okay, good. Add a little spacing around them. Okay, so what happened? Well, obviously, once we added the spacing, these four things were just a little bit too big as the whole unit, the whole UL, to actually be centered. And we have a float drop that's happened here. And that's one of the things that's different. With floating, you have to do some trial and error. And now would with the 360 do it? Let's save and run it. Oh, it just did. So 360 would be just big enough. However, we wouldn't go put some enormous number in there, because then it wouldn't really look centered, because it'd be centering the container, but the stuff inside wouldn't look centered. That looks pretty centered to me. And if in any other additional styling we did, we made these get a little bigger because you changed the font, or you made it bold, or I don't know what else, stuff like that, then we would go ahead and look at our text decoration is still on there, or underlining too. So where the heck did I screw up more typing? T-I-O-N. Wow. I'm having one of those days, I'm afraid. Okay, that's better. So if you, at this point, again, I would say you wouldn't have to continue. You could just go ahead and we would continue to make these act like links, make them have some hover, some other link behavior and so on. But the whole thing with adding a color bar or adding boxes or so on is not really necessary. There's nothing wrong with that. You might do some other text work though, right? But we're going to do, so let's go ahead and, one of the things we would have to do is to do some link kind of styling, right? So here we go. We're going to go to the nav A now again. So we're doing this to all the A's. This acts kind of like the static state would. We'll say color. And we'll say background color. I think I'm using the same one, the FAF0. I'm going to go grab that. EO6, yeah, same one. Good. Whoop. Sorry. Color, background color. All right, and then we're going to do a color and a background color for the hover, which will be the same as the focus. We like to have this. This time I'm going to put those as also as black, but we could switch them to white. But we're going to change the background color to this color. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. Oops. Save it and run it. Okay, so now we've got little boxes around them and we've got a hover on them. Again, we could continue though if we wanted to do a or we could change colors or so on, but we don't have to do the next steps, but we could. But this will also give me a chance to show you more, to repeat this idea of this overflow, using the overflow statement about containing floats. And you know what? I believe there was a text from the old textbook, which was mentioned here in the assignment. I'm going to go try to get that page scanned for you and drop it in here, because I think this, using the overflow as the trick to fix this collapsing container, is a little easier thing to do. But let's take a look and see what happens. Now, right now, remember, we still have an overall div container called a nav, which stretches this whole area here. And what if we wanted to make that, use that as the bar, kind of the color bar that works here? Well, we can do that. It is up here is the plain old nav. We're dealing with the plain old nav now, the overall container for this stuff. We can give it a background color. I'm just going to use the word tan. You'd find your own special color. And we could give it a padding, the space inside before we see the border area, right, of 5px and 0, top, bottom, and left, right. Okay, semicolon. And here's the problem. Everything within this container is floating, so therefore you won't be surprised to see, as I showed you briefly the other day in a different presentation, that the container starts to open up. It's got that little padding area, but once it hits this, it says it collapses, all right? So the way we fix this is we do an overflow collapse. Overflow to prevent the collapse. Now the overflow is really a little glitchy trick, because this overflow command was not made for this purpose, but it just works here. And then there are some other ways to keep your containers from collapsing. You can read about in the new textbook, but I'll give you the page on this one and try to put it right here near this exercise. So here we are. We made a bar over the whole thing. If we want to do that sort of thing, you could. And again, we can do the "you are here" effect if we wish, by going down to the here area, which works the same way as our other one did. And we're going to say background color, we'll use this same color, same idea. Okay, so now that one is already, like, it's already been clicked on. It's all right, and that would just give us the feedback that we are already on that page if we wish. All right, what about these guys over here? Well, I'll just show you those, okay? Again, these are ones that you can just remove the comments and take a look at. This one, the difference with this one is, instead of going to the links and making them act like block elements, it goes to the LIs and make them act like inline elements, and display inline, which is a little different. It's similar in some ways, different in others. The way the color is handled, the way these boxes are handled is different. And the hover, there is no "you are here" effect on it, but this is what it looks like. Okay. So slightly different method. The underline has been left in there, but it could be removed. Of course, the text color can be changed. So I'll let you take a look at the way it's constructed. Maybe you'll want to use that one. It is another floating one though. The only flex one is the first one. And here's yet another one. This creates some special looking little bar, which you might like. Some of these ideas on this one. But again, you never would use one of these if it doesn't, you have to make it match your color scheme and your style. Again, this is a floating one. Take a look and see how it's made. And this is where it comes from. Makes kind of like a little, I don't know. I like the way the hover works on this. It makes it look more like a shadow. All right, so that's your run through of 4 different navigation styles. The first one with flex, which I think is perhaps in some ways the easiest. And let's go back and look at the instructions. We went through that whole thing. We did all that stuff already. Oh, did you notice that I didn't just ever select this stuff and paste it in? And I sure hope you didn't either. Because remember, selecting and pasting, certainly from a PDF, but even from a Word document, into a code area like HTML or CSS, especially CSS, is going to really screw you up. So don't do it. You just got to retype like I did. Okay, we did all this stuff, but I want to go over some of these ideas. All your page will need navigation. Horizontal navigation is much more common. There is still available the idea of vertical navigation, and I have an example down here on this page. Remember, you don't need a fancy navigation bar. Just attractively positioned text, centered or left or right, whatever works for you, is fine. All right, and it could just be have some link styling. It could be just look nice and work with your scheme. Each of your pages needs to have one set of navigation on the top. I don't think you want more than one anywhere. Sometimes people have it on the bottom too, but I don't think that's necessary. You could use the "you are here" effect. It's up to you. All right. You have different ways to identify. Do remember that the navigation links are different than your plain old link styling. You have link styling for all those absolute links that you have on your page, and you have navigation. I think the best way would be to give the navigation, a container of its own. Either call it nav itself, open close nav, or make it a div with an ID of nav or something like that. All right, and then you apply those to that. And also, I would say your navigation links should go below, near the end of your CSS page. So you make all your regular links, and then the particular ones, just the navigation links below, so they don't interfere with each other. Navigation instruction. Here's some links, other tutorials. In fact, there's a lot of Flexbox ones. These are just some links that will give you a group of them in each cases, right? And there's some other floating ones, including a vertical example here, which is right there. Simple vertical CSS area. So let you take a look at that one if you wish. And I gotta get a lot of back to the bottom there again. Oh, this a little bigger too. Okay, good. So here's some more links you could look at to help you out with that. As I say, please don't steal the code. Probably not, but it's okay to borrow portions of code and the general idea for sure. And you can do that with the examples I've given you too.